Right. Okay. Let's go. Right. Okay. Yes. Just this schedule. Where's Timo? Ah, here.
Hello.
Hello. Yes, this is something we have been working with Timo. You are in the middle of everything. I thought you might play the musical examples. I don't know yet. Let's see what happens. Sorry? Okay. We're trying to escape from all these answers. Well, the fact is, this is sort of an ongoing thing. This is not finished yet in all parts, but I'll go straight to the point. In music theory textbooks, this is about 4-5-1 cadence, basically. In music theory textbooks, we have this kind of construction, as you know. 4-5-1. 1 is usually depicted as triads in root position, following each other immediately, using traditional voice leading. That meaning one established by Johann Joseph Fuchs in the early 18th century. Right, this funny picture is from the first music theory textbook in Finland. I think that's right, where this one is presented, this cadence, like this. All right. Well, the thing is, in many types of music, this cadence doesn't, well, let's say in real life, you rarely find this. And we went through, well, actually, Timo has done his part. Mine is not finished, but all Mozart clavier sonatas, then a selection of jazz standards, Robert Johnson's music, and selection of Motown hits. And here are the results.
Finnish jury.
Sorry?
Here are the
The
results.
results of the Finnish jury.
Yeah, that's right. All right. So here are all the cadences in Mozart sonatas, right? This is just to show you that the work has actually been done. Some results. For instance, subdominant usually is on the second degree instead of the fourth, and the 2-6 chord is the most frequent of them all. And on the bass, on the other hand, the subdominant note is the most frequent. Right. And here are the most frequent cadences. And there's only 2 of
Yes, but the 2 is minor 2 in there, right? It's minor 2.
what? Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Sorry about this.
No, it's okay.
And even this one is yeah. Well, maybe, Timo, you don't have to play this if I put this from YouTube. And here on the last line, you can see the only 4-5-1. Can you see that? Yeah. All right. Yes. And well, are they real chords or are they not? But this, nevertheless, this is the only occasion. What? Yeah, no. I think we have some commercials. Yeah. No.
Dancer.
Yeah. Okay. Then, jazz standards, we use this kind of selection criteria because there's a massive amount of them, of course. I think both appears in the new real book series, which is authorized by original composers, and if they are dead, the original publishers. And then they had to be amongst the most 100 most recorded standards, and this work had already been done in jazzstandards.com, where hundreds of thousands of recordings went through. And the other pieces you can probably recognize many of them, especially in this school. Yeah. Anyway, and this is the work that I do not have the statistics ready, because first of all I tried to use the same criteria for defining or finding cadences that in Mozart, and well, this was first attempt. But the basic thing is that if we don't count any secondary dominance or so on, it doesn't really do justice to the musical style. We decided that we, in the case of standards, take all two-chord progressions that lead to tonic, that being a local tonic or sort of global. And these are the cadences that you can find them there. Yes. And I can give you some initial results. Of course, everything is at least 7th chord.
Sorry.
So on.
Esa, can you just clarify this? The two chord progressions that lead to a tonic,
Yeah.
is that at the structural function?
Sorry?
Is that at the structural point in the piece, or is that
Well,
just...
we are talking about 32 bars
Okay.
standard, so there's not really, well, you have a surface structure and that's about it.
Right.
Yeah, side. Well, I think all the things you are is a fine example. Timo. He's much better piano player than I am, so. Sorry. We didn't talk about this earlier, so there you can hear every 4 or 8 bars. Sort of the local, no, every 4 bars have a local tonic. So you don't have to play the melody, only the chords.
No, the whole thing. Solo, drummer?
And there's first tonic, so the cadence before that was taking,
Okay.
yeah, that kind of things. And that one as well. Okay, that's enough. Thanks. Whereas in autumn leaves, let's say, which is a chain of fifths, we only took the last one.
Right.
Yes.
Answers the question.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. Very good. Okay, but the point today is that there is absolutely no 4/5 cadences as presented in textbook. Right. And Robert Johnson, There are a lot of 4/5s, of course, but they are in reverse order. It's in every piece. And all chords, tonic, subdominant, dominant, are basically major minor sevenths. I don't like to call them dominant chords more because they are not dominant.
Good.
Yeah. Except for the dominant. And the subdominant. But I'm not going there today. All right. This kind of 5/4 cadences, so you can find a lot of them in guitar-driven rock music. John Fogerty used triads, but of course not traditional voice leading and so on. And I like this. I have to play you this. Aretha Franklin's Respect. It's really nice 5/4 cadence with commercials. On the background harmony, really nice 4/5 movement. Only the minus. Where you go from the 7th of the dominant chord to the 3rd of the subdominant chord, and from the 3rd of the dominant chord to the 3rd of the 7th of the subdominant chord. This is a really used voice leading writing. Please. Oh, sorry, I was talking nonsense. Actually, it was from... Too early, too much coffee. Basically, you are going from the 7th of the tonic chord to the 3rd of the subdominant chord, and from the 3rd of the tonic chord to 7th of the 7th of the subdominant chord. Yeah. And the whole thing, the verse is structured on 5/4 progression together. Okay. Yes, and I'm ashamed that I really didn't have time to go all of these through, but the initial impression is that there's a lot of, well, this is simple, there's a lot of 4/5 ones, but 5 seems to be at least almost always a 7th chord, not a triad. So I think this is can be easily understood because this cadence that is in textbooks it's actually necessarily complicated voice leading. Why do you have to jump when you can tie one note from the 4 chord to 5 chord? You can keep the 7th tight, and that's how musicians seems to be doing that anyway, regardless of the style. Oh, I already presented the conclusions. Okay, anyway. So, at this point, we haven't found not many. Actually, I haven't found any progression that would go by these textbook rules as such. Of course, many kind of modifications and variations, but not that one. So it's not very useful, actually. Really useful. And in music theory, and with music theory I don't mean harmony textbooks, but the serious research in music theory, which is, I think, should be, again my confusions, should be based on music analysis, style-sensitive music analysis. First you look what you have in music, what's the logic and grammar in any type of music. Then you can start working out a theory about that. And then you can write your textbooks all over again. Yeah, that's basically so. But I wanted you to see this, how this cadence has been treated in music theory. Even there, Riemann's basic cadence, there's a 1 between 4 and 5, which is well, sort of, well, I don't know what that is, but I know. And the Rameau's example, where you have 6th chord on the subdominant and the 7th on the dominant, basically. So even Rameau, Baroque theorist, thought subdominant and dominant chords, their basic forms, to be not 3-note chords, but 4-note chords, basically, tetras, as we just said. Right. Well, basically that's it. If you have, I hope you have something to say. It's, I would also, but yeah, also so long things to say. Okay, that's it. Yeah.
Do you have any idea about the origin of the textbook form? Where does it come from?
Yes, it is, actually. So, I don't have a quick answer for that. But, by textbook form, you mean?
The 4, 5, 1.
That's a funny thing that has been, at least in Finnish music theory books. Ronkainen in 1890 copied the cadence exactly from Rispieter's, a German guy's textbook, as such. But we haven't gone that far yet, that where did Rispieter took his, basically, because unfortunately he doesn't say anything about his sources. Ronkainen does, and quotes the book's name wrong. But there seems to be a long tradition, at least in textbooks in Finland, that you don't tell your sources, where you have taken your ideas. And they are only presented as facts, basically. So this kind of, this is only one example of the sort of things that necessarily are not in accordance with musical practice, that are circulated from decades and centuries, and they just appear as, well, each guy copies the things that he has been told and so on.
There might be histories
Yes,
of music. I'm not. It's not correct. There might be music. There might be books written about the history of music theory development, and the Society for Music Theory might be able to put you in the right direction. There's various other ones. Society for Music Theory, and then there's another one. Would probably have a list of the history of theory textbooks.
Well, one thing is that what do you call a textbook?
Well, there could be performative, performance practice, but there could be theory textbooks, and if they don't know, then
because I wouldn't call Rameau's Traité de l'harmonie. It's not a textbook. It's a study on on music theory
So
and music
There'll be
construction.
all sorts of different.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry, Lauri was.
Yeah, really two things. First, about Rameau, because you're referring to his earlier writings,
Yes.
in Harmony, and he forbid rule position progression by step.
Yes.
So for him, what we nowadays call
Yes.
4 to 5
Yes.
would be something that he would have forbidden.
Absolutely,
He would
and
have
he did.
added a kind of non-existing chord in between, because it's not a progression that would be allowed. And the second issue related to especially the Mozart example is that, of course, at that time the Stufen theory, the scaling theory, had been developed.
Yes.
Because only Gottfried Weber in the first decades of the 19th century.
Yes, 1824 to be
Yeah.
exact. Yes.
Who created this idea. And one point of reference which you might find interesting is the so-called rule of the octave.
Yes, I know. Yes.
So you know that
Yes.
because the rule of the octave is an idea of non-figure bass
Yes.
for third bass players. So the bass player or the third bass player has to know in which key we are,
Yes.
because he or she has to recognize the scaling wheel of the bass. And therefore, this rule of the octave, which had a variety of actual
Yes.
manifestations, there are different ways of showing this, but they gave numbers for each individual scaling wheel in the bass. And
Absolutely.
for scaling wheel 4, when the scale was ascending, they always gave 6-3 or 6-5. And
That's
when
right.
it was descending, they always gave 4-2, which means
That's right.
that for them it would have been pretty much impossible to have a 5-3 if the line continues to 5. And from some Mozart's comments, we do know the way that he used the term modulation. We do know that he thought from the perspective of rule of the octave, because he refers to very repeating tonicizations as modulations. And the idea is that he had to know which scaling wheel we have the bass in order to be able to establish the numbers that are expected to be performed on that chord.
Yes.
So the 18th century the theorists of Mozart's time wouldn't have thought of a 4 chord and a 5 chord the way that post-Weberian theorists would have thought about it. And therefore these typical cadence that you call, or the kind of archetypal cadence stuff, which doesn't occur too often in the music, the actual music, can't be anything that was revised or spoken about before 1850s, I would say. Definitely not in the
Yes.
in the 18th
Yeah,
century.
yeah. Because certainly, this is from Rameau's Generation Harmonique, which is later than
Yeah,
Rete.
and he changed
And
his opinion.
Yes,
to that.
yeah, he changed. Actually, the past 2 weeks, I read everything that Rameau wrote, actually, and Weber as well. So they are more or less freshly in mind at the moment. So yes, actually, I would claim Weber as well, or the Stufen theory, which is in it's a scale degree theory. Well, asteanalys, aste for this textbook, let's say this way, because it conveniently fits into that type of thinking that Weber is suggesting, starting from 1824. And why that is so popular in English-speaking world, general. I think Weber's work was translated into English by American publisher in first one in 1841 and then 1851, and I think it got huge amount of popularity in music education. That's my impression, at least. It might explain a lot of harmonic thinking in the English-speaking world.
But are these done by the German companies in Philadelphia? Because there was very little music theory. There was some theories to do with church choral singing in New England in the late 17th century. But it was really, not until the 19th century, with the arrival of Germans in Philadelphia, that music publishing I think, this is what I wanted to ask before, or suggest maybe, is that to understand why this becomes such a problem, especially to us Anglophones, is because there's one guy who tries to publish Irish and Scottish tunes in Edinburgh in 18. I'll find the reference, I'll let you have it. But his problem is that this doesn't sound up to date. If you want to sound modern, you would use this. So that something was necessary to present modernity. And modernity was this Euroclassical Stufentheory type of thinking. Because that represented the cosmopolitan, rich Central European way of life, which the barbarian English didn't have. The land without music and so on. So there is some kind of ideological level to this crystallization of musical practices.
Yes, unfortunately. Like moving from the voice leading type we are called traditional nowadays, and band parallel fifths of the earlier centuries, which sound great. There's nothing wrong with the parallel fifths. It's only a matter of style, or differentiating between different styles of music, and unfortunately politics is many times involved in that. Cultural
Call it politics.
Yeah,
With the
that's
big P.
I'm not chairing this session.
You've got 2 minutes left.
2 minutes left. So if you have something more about the history of Finnish music theory textbooks, Timo is the right man to ask, because he's doing an extensive study on that, going through all the textbooks that are published in Finnish in Finland, starting from, which is the early one, 1865. Starting 1865.
Well, thank you very much.
That's about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.